Hello and welcome back to Incremental Factory. In between episodes I increased my chip production quite a bit. I'll show you a quick peek at it. We have two parcels making Gen 3 chips, which are the pink ones. They are each making 16 per second, so we have a total of 32 per second production on these. I will just show you the factories a little bit and you can pause the video and look at it further if you have the desire to do so. This is the low-K dielectric setup. This is the copper cable setup. This is the aluminum setup. And this is the phenolic resin setup. Quite a bit of oil and coal. Then down below I have three parcels making generation 2 chips, the blue ones. Each parcel has 24 per second for a total of 72 per second Gen 2 chips. And same thing, the factories down here are, this is the aluminum factory. This is the silicon dioxide factory. Basically a whole bunch of oxygen and quartz. And then this is the copper cable production. Quite a bit of copper cables, so there are connections everywhere. But that just goes over here to making copper plates, which are making copper ore from here. And then I have two parcels maxed out 32 units apiece on the green chips, which are generation 1. So I'm making a total of 64 per second on the green. We probably will have to increase this. But to note here, I'm trying something different with the copper cables. Since we're limited to 32 per second out, I maxed these machines out with 32 copper cable makers, which actually makes 64 per second. So I have 32 per second going to this node, and 32 per second going to this bottom node. And this bottom node just goes right back up to this top node. So I think that should work. It should consolidate it and send it on its way until we hit the limit of, I think the limit's like 384 per second right now. This is a quick yellow science factory. This is just a whole bunch of oil making petroleum, which goes into 2 sulfur units here. I had to split these up again because of the 32 per second output limit. That goes into the node, which just consolidates it and goes to yellow science. The chips are coming off the bus. So this is making yellow science. We have 8 of them here. And it is making 8 per second. So we're going to start working on hafnium so we can start the next turrets. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the research. Looks like they've done an update to the game and it has updated the screen a little bit, so it looks a little nicer. Kind of like it. The yellow science has been running a while. It's 88,000 stored up. The first one we are going to do is the warehouse one so that we can store up more stuff. This increases it to 24,000. Right now the current storage is 12,000, so it basically doubles the storage, so that's pretty awesome. But this is probably going to tank my factory because it's going to start making everything all at once, which is going to eat up my energy limit. I'm already at 4.6 of 5.4, so I think actually before we fire this up, let's go back to the map and add a whole bunch of power plants. By couple I mean double. And then we'll probably add some coal power plants just to be extra careful. For the coal power plants here, we are going to rearrange this a little bit. We are going to take coal to this node and then take coal over to here. That way we can consolidate these and something like that. We have coal coming in here. It just transfers between these 2 nodes, which frees up a whole bunch of connections. So it works out. We're almost maxed out. We have 14 power plants on this node, so hopefully that's enough to hold our power. Let's go ahead and do the research. Warehouse. You can see they haven't fixed that yet, but we can see it still tanked our production quite a bit. Alright, let's take a quick look at the research. This copper one is doing 32 per second, or per tick. I want to see if this increases the extraction building's gain to 300%. Let's go ahead and research this one. And go back to the map and see if that number changed at all. So it did. It went 38.4, so that's a great one to have. It does increase the extraction rate a little bit. Super helpful for our ore situation. Go back to the research. Let's work on anything military oriented so that we can. This one looks like it was added in the update, the drone tech tier 2. We're going to go ahead and do that. I think we already have that done, but so let's do military tech 4 unlocks reinforced walls and splash turret. Let's go ahead and do that one. Energy efficiency, will probably do that one. Actually, let's just go ahead and do it. And we have node output. We will get to that one. Turret attack speed, attack damage, increases damage by 100%. Let's go ahead and do this one. Increases the range. What do we got? 150,000. Let's go ahead and do this one. Reduces all damage taken by 60%. Do that one. Do the attack speed one. That looks like all the military ones that we can afford anyway. Looks like there's white science, which is the last science. Let's go ahead and finish up some of these other ones. Let's do their beacons. What do we got? 5, 10, 20,000 red science left. Let's just go ahead and do all of them. High-tech electronics, rocket tech, nanoelectronics. I don't know what that last one was, but so that's everything that requires yellow science. It looks like everything else needs white science. So let's get some hafnium going so we can start these new turrets. That is all at the was at the bottom. I guess it's not anymore. Hafnium smelter, we're going to go ahead and do 32 of these. They require ore, hafnium ore, coal, and oxygen. So let's grab 32 of those. Let's grab 32 of these. Same thing. So that will require hafnium ore, which is over here in the extractor parcel. It will require coal, and it will require oxygen. So that's relatively simple. Let me get these hooked up, put them in the warehouse. And okay, that is 72 hafnium plates per second. That should get us the next turret, which is this one here. Turret Mark II, 146,000 hafnium plates per turret. That's just for the first one, so I can't imagine what the second one's going to cost. But it's climbing pretty quickly. You can see it right here. 18,000, so we should have it in relatively short manner. We'll have to renovate this area a little bit and see what we can do. Next, I'm going to just spend some time and put down every turret I can possibly put down. Looks like our storage capacity is 362,000, so that is exactly what is required for the next turret. 362,500 bricks. So we will go ahead and put some of these down. We have the ability to create Gen 4 chips. We might as well start a production line for it. We're going to start it down here in this corner. It's going to be a fairly large production chain, I think. Let's just go ahead and throw down 2 of these. Open it up and let's find the Gen 4 chips. They are yellow. We're going to do 16 in each parcel only because there is a ton of input, so we're going to be limited on connections. So I'm guessing that's going to reduce how many parcel buildings we can put in this parcel. So we'll do 2. We're going to shoot for 32 per second, so that'll be 2 parcels full of 16. It needs a whole bunch of stuff: high K dielectric, copper cables, high grade, heat sink, phenolic resin, and silicone germanium. So let's start with the high K dielectric. High K requires low K, hafnium, and sulfur. So let's get that set up. We luckily have a setup already doing 32. This setup right here is doing 32 low K, so that's what we need. So let's just go ahead and move that over to here. 32 low K being produced. Next we need 32 hafnium plates. For that we're going to need some extraction parcels. That is for, these two are going to be for hafnium ore. One for oxygen, one for coal. Those down here. We'll need a production parcel for making hafnium plates, which is going to be 32, which I think we have to do a 16 and 16 again. Hafnium smelter, up 16 of these. We've done this before, so it's nothing too crazy. So we'll need 2 of these. There's the hafnium. We have all the miners just maxed out, whether they need to be or not. So we have 3 hafnium miners going into a node, going into 2 hafnium plate manufacturers, 16 plates, 16 buildings each in these parcels, and a coal and an oxygen going into this node being distributed to these hafnium plate manufacturers. That goes to a node and off over to the high K dielectric factories, 2 of them right here. Same reason, 16 buildings so that we aren't limited by the connections. Next up we'll need, for high K, we need sulfur. We're going to need 64 sulfur. This is the sulfur setup for 64 sulfur. We have 10 oil miners going into a node that caps off at 320 per second over to the petroleum, which makes 32 petroleum barrels, which gets sent to the sulfur. Sulfur makes, turns 32 petroleum barrels into 64 sulfur. We have it being distributed to 2 nodes just to consolidate it because we are limited to 32 per second out of this sulfur mine. And this just needs to go up to the hafnium plant, or the high K plant I should say. This will get high K being produced. And that high K needs to go, I guess we'll put it into a node. Put this into here as well. And this needs distributed to the 2 Gen 4 chip plants. So next up we can take a look. We need, for the Gen 4 chip plants, we need copper cables and heat sinks, high-grade copper cables. High-grade copper cables are right here. They require high-grade copper plates, which are right here. They require 10 copper ore per plate, so that's a crazy amount. 2 coal and half an oxygen. The heat sinks as well also require copper plates, so we will make a high-grade copper plate facility next. So we're going to need 112 of these, roughly 3.5 parcels of them, to make the high-grade smelter. It requires 10 copper ore, 2 coal, and 0.5 oxygen. So we're going to need a total of 1,120 ore coming in, 224 coal, and 56 oxygen. The copper ore is going to be the trouble because it's 1,120, so we're going to have to do a couple different setups because we are capped at 320 per second transportation speed. But let's go ahead and copy this down. This requires a ton of ore or steel. So that's going to take some time to copy. It's going to eat through most of our steel. But we need to figure out how to get 1,120 copper ore into these 4 buildings. So I guess let's start by doing an extractor, maxing it out with copper. That is right here. And let's copy that down a couple times. Let's actually put it on a node first, so when we copy it, it copies the connections as well. I hope my math was correct on these because it seems like a crazy amount of material. But we're going to need 3.5 of these setups. Which means we're going to do 4 just to keep it easy, which will line up with these 4 parcels. So that'll get high-grade copper plates being made. Before I copy the rest of those down, let's go ahead and set up the coal and oxygen to make sure it's working. Let's grab this. This is going to be coal. We're going to need 224 coal, which is going to be roughly 7 of those. That's going to come into here, coal, and we'll distribute these down to all 4 of these. This be able to handle all 4 of them because it only requires 224, which is going to be divided up between 4 of them. 1 for oxygen. This is oxygen. That makes 24 oxygen. We need 56 oxygen, so we'll need 3 of these. I guess we'll just give that its own node as well. We need 112 copper plates. We can only do at most 26 buildings in this parcel, which only gives us 104 if we have 4 of them. So unfortunately, we're going to have to add a 5th one. So we'll have to divide these nodes up accordingly. And that's going to give us, we're going to do 24 per parcel. It'll give us a little extra. We're actually running out of copper plates. They are used for the extraction parcels. It costs 14,000 copper plates per extraction parcel now, which we're burning through quite a bit because I'm building all of these. I can look at it. It's over here somewhere. Right here. We just have 132 per second. Maybe we'll up that to 64 to speed it along. That should speed it along a little bit. Let's go back over to the Gen 4 chip factory and continue. So I was doing my math a little wrong. I was basing these heat sinks here, down here, this recipe here. I was thinking it only made 1 heat sink. This actually makes 4 heat sinks. So it greatly reduces the amount of copper plates we need. We only need 64 copper plates, which I divided into 3. Each one's making 22. So it's actually 66, but that'll be a little extra. So we're able to consolidate that a little bit. So this is just all copper mining, goes into the node, goes into the copper plate thing, and then we have coal up here, oxygen down here. So this makes high-grade copper plates. These 3 parcels go into this node here. That makes, we need to put that into 2 different parcels. One is for high-grade copper cables. That's this one here. We have 16 of them in here that will output 32 high-grade copper cables. We need a total of 96 for this build because each Gen 4 requires 3 HG copper cables. So we need 96 total. So let's copy this up. Let's actually drag this node here. Copper plates. So that'll be 96 copper cables, and then we need some of the copper plates coming down to the heatsink farm. Heatsink farm requires 8 of these buildings. So that'll make 32 heat sinks. We just need to add some aluminum to this. Alright, here's the aluminum setup. We had this made before, so it was pretty simple. That gives us the heat sinks. Heat sinks need to go to the Gen 4 chip production. So I guess we should probably put this into a node. Oh, it has 7 connections available, but heatsink, and then we can just grab a heatsink up to here, as well as up to this other one. Get it on the screen here. And we can grab these copper cables as well. Those go into the factories. So next up we need phenolic resin. We're going to need 32 phenolic resin. We already have a factory set up to make 32 phenolic resin. That is right up here. This setup here makes 32 phenolic resin. So we can just copy this down. And last up is silicone germanium. Silicone germanium is right here. We need 32 of them. So that will be 16 of these because that produces 2. So we'll just need 16 silicone, which we've done before. It's just quartz and coal. But germanium is a little bit more complicated. It is not complicated, but it just requires a lot. Germanium requires 0.2 coal ash for 0.2 germanium. So if we need 16 of these, let's see, 5 of those is 1. So we would need 5 times 16 of these, which is 80. So we'll need 80 germanium factories. So for silicone germanium, we need coal. That'll be right here. We'll just max these out. We'll figure out the numbers in a minute. But the coal is going to go to the node here, which is going to go to this, which is going to produce coal ash, which is the coal combustor. Max that out at 32. That'll give us 16 coal ash, which is I think what we need. Coal ash will go to, I think we'll send it to the node, and then we'll send it to the germanium factory. That is making germanium. All it requires is coal ash. So we actually need 3 of these. Which means we're going to need a whole bunch of coal. And that should get the germanium going. We'll need another node to consolidate those. And that will go into the silicone germanium. Then we just got to get the silicone in here. Alright, there's that layout for silicone germanium. We have quartz and silicone down here, germanium up here. That goes into the silicone germanium factory. To this node, we can just drag this node up for organizational purposes. This will get over to here finally. This will be silicone germanium. We can drag that node back down now. So that should be making Gen 4 chips, I believe. 400 of them, yep, so that's good to go. So all we gotta do is bring these chips into a node, which we have another problem. We cannot export them because we have too many connections here. So we will have to drop this down even lower so that we get another connection, which will be fine. We can just drag the node. We should have plenty of connections on our nodes, so we can just set up another one of these. Let's see how many we have to drop it down to. So just 14 gives us one more connection. We drag that up to the bus here. Let's just drag another one over here. Let's get it going to the warehouse. There's yellow chips, and finally yellow chips to the warehouse. We'll have to let that run for a little bit, see if it keeps up the production. It should be, I think I designed it for 32 per second, so once it burns through the buffers, it should come down to 32 per second. Looks like it's a little wavering. I'll look and see what that's all about, but we're pretty close to the 32 per second. But that is Gen 4 chips being made. So that's good stuff. So that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully next episode we'll get to digging down deeper in the mine, but we will see how it goes. Thanks for watching.